What's up YouTube, this is Tubedigga. This is the third video in this mini series of me showing you how I put together a drum and bass track from scratch using the Akai MPC 1. But again, of course you can do this in the Live 2, the X and the MPC software if you've got the MPC Touch. And if you follow some of the techniques that I use regarding processing using the program editor or the sample editor, you can also apply some of the techniques in this video to your Akai Force if you've got one of those. But of course the sequencing is a fair bit different with the Akai Force. So just to jog your memory, if you've watched the previous two videos, if you haven't, please do watch those first before you watch this one. I've got to the stage now where I've got a 32 bar sequence with a break that I've generated simply from one-shot sounds that I've then converted into a sample or a self-contained sample, and then I've converted that into a chopped breakbeat over 8 pads. I've made a bass line, and I've also got a stab kind of melody from an old modular synth sound that I had in my library. So if you remember in the last video, if you watched that, I'd got to the stage where I'd created a sound effects program, which is the one you see here, and I've got pretty much a full bank of sound effects. Some of the pads haven't got samples on them. This one hasn't, which you can see is not lit. Let's go to the program editor. And all of the rest have. You might remember I added a Rode sound which was very musical and pretty in contrast to the vibe of the track that I've got going, which is quite energetic, maybe a little bit dark. But this I've actually retuned, and it's actually in tune with the stab sound now. So I'll just play a bit of the track back and I'll just let you hear that Rode sample just to show you how I've got that to work with this. Now this is the sample. So I've pitched it down -3 semitones, and now it kind of almost plays the same notes as the stab. So I'll just play that. The stabs occur at the start of this sequence and throughout, but every 8 bars I believe. So I could put them there after it, but it also works on top of it. All bar that last note. So what I'm going to do is remove that with the end point, so just bring that to here. And that should work nicely with the stab sound. Just going to double length just initially to 64 bars. Once I've laid these samples over that 64 bars, that's when I can double the length to 128 and again to 256, and then I can start sequencing. So I want to get into the sequencing as soon as possible. That should be enough to fill the 64 bars, and then we can get on with the sequencing. let's double the length, 128, 256, and now we've got a full length song. Now I can start stripping away the elements. So I definitely want the bass to be removed from bar 1 all the way up to bar 65. So I'm going to remove the first 64 bars of the bass line. So it's easy, we just go to the bass track, press erase, go to the end bar of where we want to erase, which is bar 65. So it doesn't erase bar 65, it erases everything from bar 1 up to bar 65. And that's our bass. And you might remember, I've actually got 2 bass sounds, so I've actually not remembered that. What I can do is actually use that. So this is the main bass sound, and you'll notice just at the end of every 4 bars I've got this second bass sound. I think I'll keep that in from bar 33 onwards. So let's erase this from bar 1 to bar 33. So that's the first 32 bars of that removed. Let's go down to the main bass sound and press erase and erase that up to bar 65. Now the break, sometimes I like to use the break as a percussive element to lead myself into the main break, and the simplest way to do that is by going to the track mix. We can go to the break. All we've got on there at the moment is a compressor, so I can go into the main break program and add a high pass filter. So I'm going to use the air filter. Let's go to the editor and we can just change the filter type here from a low pass 4 to a high pass 4. I think I'll just use a high pass 2, that'll be enough. So the frequency is up at the highest value there, so let's just take a listen to that. So the stab will obviously give us some kind of rhythm. Now the reason I'm doing this is you obviously want the track to build up, but you also want elements there for DJs to be able to mix this with. I don't want it so sparse that there's no rhythmic reference point for a DJ. So let's just bring this down maybe to 5.18 kilohertz and see if that introduces the break a little bit. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to keep it at that. My bad. Let's go back out here and switch automation editing on. We need to go into the filter. I'm just going to slowly introduce the break as we get closer to bar 17. was a candle. You might have seen some smoke coming across there. That was a candle that I just blew out. As you saw, I used the automation to kind of build up to bar 65 before the main bass dropped in, and then I introduced it back over the next 16 bars. But I didn't really like how that worked. It was fine, but it doesn't really give the effects that I want. I'm going to go back to the grid editor. We're on the break track, which is track 1. I'm going to go to the filter frequency, and let's just scroll along, and we can see that filter automation that I've just written. What I'm going to do is actually cut the break destructively from bar 65 up to bar 81. So let's just go to erase. I'm not going to cut it, I'm going to erase it. So let's type in 65 and 81. Simple. Delete that. Let's pop this open. We of course can just bring this automation straight down from here so that the break will just slam straight in when we get to bar 81. Okay, so this is one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut these notes from bar 16 to 17. So we've got a bar gap. So let's just see what that sounds like. Excuse me, I'm under pressure, so I eat biscuits. Now, what I can do is pop this open, go to the automation. This is another little trick, and I don't need to do this, but it's just something that occurred to me, another little processing, sequencing kind of trick that I do, which you might want to employ yourselves. Add new, pad 2, parameters. I'm trying to find parameters. Oh no, it's a mixer parameter, isn't it? My bad. So the sends are mixer parameters. So I want to choose send 1, where we've got our delay, which most of the sound effects are going through. And this will allow me to just delay the last little bit of that break, so we get a nice delayed bit of the break to fill the space between bar 16 and 17 where our break cuts off. So that means I want to pull this back to bar 16 and put some automation in there. We want to obviously drag it all the way down to the bottom, or delete anything else that we don't need, because we don't want that delay on any of this, only at that point. So we need to zoom back out. Now, another little tip, if your time correction is set to something relatively high, like 1/16 notes, obviously you're going to have a lot more kind of resolution to deal with. We could put this at 1 bar, close that, and then it's a lot easier to just grab bigger sections of it. But again, it would still be nice if we had a line tool in here. That would be a lot more handy. So let's just bring that open again, and we can just simply introduce a bit of delay here. Now, this is where your time correction at a higher resolution comes in handy, because I want that to kind of slowly just come in, just to capture that last bit, and we actually just want it to come down there before the rest of the break starts playing again at bar 17. So we hear that come in, you'll hear the break cut off, but it will be delayed just in that space. Okay, maybe I need to, excuse me again, I've got a mouthful of biscuits. Just add a bit more of that delay, because it was just a tiny bit. So I'm just going to put that back to here. Okay, that's much better. So just a little trick there that you can do with delays and breaks. Cut the break and add some automation with the delay. So I'm going to continue from here, press play, and that will play from this position. Okay, so another thing that's occurred to me is that second bass line that comes in just there. I don't want it to be repeating so regularly. So I think it's up here, isn't it? So I just want 2 notes of it, because the last 2 notes, you can see it's every 4th note it jumps up here, and I don't want that to be introduced until much later on. In fact, I'm going to take all those notes out. So again, you can see how this one sequence workflow is quite nice. You can just scroll along, as long as you've got it in your head, or the maths or the multiples of 4, 16s, 8s, whatever it is you're working with. You can just grab these and get rid of them. So I might actually keep this one. No, I'm not going to keep that one there. This will be the first time you hear that higher note. So I'm going to go along here, just bring that down. I don't think I captured those. It can be a bit fiddly, the grid, sometimes, because as you can see, it's only showing me this amount of bars, which is around 32 bars. But that's fine. Let's just grab all of those, press and hold shift, press cut. And I also want to delete every 3rd note as well, right up until we get to bar 65. So I want to cut this before bar 65 as well. I thought I'd done it up to 81, I hadn't. This high note, and again this 3rd note. If you're a bit confused as to what I'm doing, you'll hear it in a minute, and hopefully it will progress the track. So I'm slowly building up the elements by actually cutting them away as we go further on in the track. Let's cut that one out, and this 3rd note as well. So that means now I can progress the track a little bit more. Now we've got the 3rd note coming in, so I'm going to get rid of 4 more of these high notes. So they will only start coming in from bar 113. So there you go. You don't have to use the data wheel. You can actually use these little directional buttons here. But I don't want these notes, so I'm going to cut them out. Okay, so I'm going to play from the start again. I might just play this all the way up to bar 113, and that will give you a nice overview of where we're at with this track at the moment. So at the moment, I'm practically sequencing in my head. I'm thinking, okay, I know what tracks I've got. I've made them all myself from scratch. It gives my musical memory a great reference point to work with, so I know on every track what sounds I've got and what they're really doing. And you know, it just is just something that comes over time. You get to know what bars to cut things out, and they don't have to be the same bars for every track you make, but you get to remember where things are. Now with the sound effects track, we've got the melody, which is this pad 15. So I don't want that to occur so regularly. We've got a breakdown at bar 65, so what I might do is cut out the stabs from here. So let's just get the selection tool, cut these ones out, and maybe cut them out from bar 49 as well. So that means they are going to occur 8 times from bar 1. Maybe I'll also cut them out just before bar 32, so we just get them 3 times there in the first 32 bars, twice here. I'm also going to cut them out before our drop back into the break at bar 81. I'm actually going to get rid of them as well from bar 97 all the way up to bar 129. So they're going to be reintroduced all the way up here. So you might be thinking, oh, I want to hear it, I want to hear what you're doing, but what I'd rather do is do it, show you what I'm doing, show you some of the techniques, just cutting things out and telling you where I'm kind of cutting them out from. So I'm just working in sort of, you know, no set amount of bars, but I'm counting the amount of things that I'm cutting out. And you'll hear how the track builds up and then things get reintroduced like these back up here again. Now the sound effects, it's absolutely, you know, chock-a-block full of them, and obviously I can cut some of these out as well. So for example, we've got this riser sound here, which is pad 14. My bad, it's pad 13. So what I could do is also start cutting these out as well. So maybe I don't want that to lead into bar 9. I might want it every 16 bars, so I can just cut every other one of those out, so they're not so regular. Okay, and So we want one there. So I've got one here, one here. Did I just cut out the wrong one? No, I didn't. So shift undo to redo. It's this one I want to cut out. Even though it's every next one and I know what that is, I can see it, sometimes it gets a bit fiddly and confusing. You get a bit lost because you're looking at so many different notes. Okay, so I'm just going to cut those riser sounds out every other note. So I could just follow that all the way through, which does take, you know, a couple of minutes sometimes just to keep going through, grabbing every other one. And, you know, doing this, you know, gives you sort of some structure to the track, because you know, every time you hear that riser, you know something else might start coming in, if that makes sense. Let's get rid of that, shift cut, keep that one, delete that one, keep that one, delete that one. It's good to sort of talk to yourself like this so you don't get lost. Oh, we're there. So what I'm going to do is play the track from the start, probably all the way up to bar 129. So this is pretty much half of the track you're going to hear now. Okay, so there was some errors in there. I left the bass line in around, well, from bar, I think from 77 to 81, I want to cut the bass out. I quite like it in the breakdown from bar 65, but when you get up to sort of around bar 77, which is back here, where is the bass? Where's that bass? Where's it gone? It's disappeared. Oh, there you go. yeah, I don't want this bass to carry on underneath these sound effects. I'm just going to cut them out there and see what happens. Let's go up to the second bass line. That doesn't occur anywhere. So let's play from bar 65. So from this point, another element needs to be added in. So whilst I'm thinking about this, playing the track back, I'm thinking maybe a string sound would work, or maybe another break. So I did load in, you might have remembered from the previous videos, some of the think break. I did want to avoid using a classic break or a sample that could be recognized, even though I've loaded in that sound effects that's, I think it's constant elevation, is it, in Gravediggers? It's a classic sample anyway. So I've already used that. The reason I'm mentioning this is because a friend of mine reached out recently and he does sync work. So basically he places music which people submit to him in adverts, and he works for a company that actually provides music for adverts. So I'm trying to make a body of work at the moment that doesn't rely on anything that can run into copyright difficulties. So what I might do is give him this track but minus the think break, but I do want to use it for this video just because it is a classic thing to use in jungle and drum and bass or any other break that's similar to it. And you know, I just love using the old school breaks, but moving forward I'm trying to sort of get to a point where I'm making music that doesn't rely on any recognizable samples. So even if I do use something that is from an old track that has copyright issues or potential copyright issues, I will manipulate it to a point of obscurity. So it's, you know, one of the big things about sampling is people use the samples for the feel and the texture, and it's not just to rip someone off or just to make things easy. It's actually, you know, a really useful way to get a vibe going, and it's not just about, you know, stealing other people's music. But for this I'm going to introduce that break maybe at 129. So what I'm going to do is go to the break track, go to the program edit for our break beat, and I'm going to add the think break in on the upper 8 pads in pad bank A. So this is our main break on these pads. Now there's a number of tricks that I can do here. One of them is to add the break across these 8 pads and use similar chops that work well with these, and then I can use the simultaneous play to trigger those. But that means that they'll always be playing unless I do something clever with muting these pads up until bar 129. So that's one method. Another method would be to duplicate this program and then copy the track to another track, and then from bar 129 I can cut out the pads from this track or the notes from this track and then continue onward to a given point using that other copy of this break. So I think I'm going to do that so I don't have to do muting and stuff and worry about having to unmute things and delete automation. And it's just quite a good trick to show you anyway. So what I'm going to do is go to the pencil icon here, which is the track edit menu, copy this track, and again, because we're working in one sequence for the entire song, we don't have to worry about replicating this across additional sequences, which obviously speeds things up in your workflow. So I'm copying this break to track 6. Let's go up to track 6 and just take a look, and you can see that all those notes have been replicated here, but we're still using the same break. What I want to do is go to the program edit menu and duplicate the program. So now we've got a copy of our main break. What I want to do now is go to erase and chop out all the notes here from bar 1 to bar 129. Okay, so our copy of our break won't be playing until it gets to bar 129. that means that will have a knock-on effect with what happens from bar 129 with our first copy. So I need to erase these notes from bar 129 to a particular bar. I think I'm going to go from bar 129 to 193. That just disappeared. Let's have to do it again. So bar 129 to 193. And that means this break will start again at 193, and that means it has a knock-on effect again with our copy. So our second copy of this break, I need to go to erase and erase that from bar 193 up to, let's actually erase it to bar 225, and that gives us another 32 bars of our original break before this second break comes in, and that will lead us all the way up to bar 257. So, you know, this does require a bit of mental arithmetic or multiplication or whatever you want to call it. So let me just remind myself, 193 to bar 225. I think that's right. 225. Yeah, that's 32 bars. Great. So let's erase that. So we shouldn't have any clashes. Other than we need to go again back to bar 1 and possibly erase this from bar 225 to the end of the track, and that's it. You don't need to worry about this because it's by default set to the last bar. So let's do that, and that should be fine. This break, which is the copy, is exactly the same as our original break. Sorry, those biscuits that I ate live on camera. Never work with biscuits, animals or children. They're repeating on me a little bit. I'm trying to be as polite as I can and not burp on camera. This is where I want to use these pads for maybe the think break. So I'm going to try that out. So let's go to program edit, pad 9, and let's add the think break, which I should have in here. I'm going to copy that to the last 8 pads, and what I need to do now is kind of replicate the chops that I've got here, which is going to be kind of tricky, but what I want to do is use simultaneous play for all these 8 pads to trigger the second bank of 8 pads. So this pad 9, is going to be followed by pad 1 or vice versa. So that's simple. It's just a kick and a ride. Now, I obviously need to time this up as well. Now, this is also another technique which I've shown in another video, is how to use the from BPM feature. So this is a perfect bar, but it's the wrong tempo. Now we can adjust the semi-tunes here and just do it quickly here and get our beat counts pretty much on here. So this would work. I would just have to fine tune it just to get these lined up with those snares, and that should work fine. So 7 semitunes or semitones and a fine tuning of 17, and that should be perfect. I am going to show you the from BPM feature, and it would be interesting to know if I got that calculation right. So let's go to sample edit. If we press detect on this think break, it's showing 113.19. If we press detect again, it's the same, it's fine. You just do that to double check. Go to from BPM. You first of all need to change the beat count. Now we know it's 1 bar long, so that would be 4 beats. That gives us a BPM of 113.20, which is the nearest decimal point. It was 0.19. If we press match, it's perfectly matched that. Okay, and there you go. You can see the tuning. I was a little bit too fast with it. Hopefully that should work. I can, well, I mean, it's pretty much dead on. You can see 1.2, there's the snare, and 1.4. So I'm going to go with that. This pad 9, needs to match pad 1. So it's just up to the snare. Okay, so we can see that pad 1 goes up to 1.2. This is a longer break, so you're going to see more beats here, but you can see quite easily it goes up to 1.2 there. Also, we know that this is a looped pad, So we can go and make sure, oh, it's already set to note on, but the loop isn't set. Okay, so you can hear that's following my original break. And I've actually already set this. I did this before the video. I just tried it out with the simultaneous play. You can see that's already simultaneously triggering pad 9. So we need to do the same for pad 2. Okay, so we need to change the simultaneous play target to pad 10, which is this pad. And we need to replicate what's going on there. So this is a snare, I think. So I'm going to choose this and maybe up to here. And put the loop on. Okay, it's not too bad. This is a bit longer, so it might clash a little bit, but I can adjust things like that as we go on. Now this one's going to be a little bit tricky because we've got the double kicks and the think break doesn't have those in there. I think as long as I start with the kick, maybe I'll just copy this pad. And for pad 4, I just need to make sure the simultaneous play is set for this. So pad 3, simultaneous play pad 11. I'm going to do all these first actually. Pad 4 will be pad 12. Pad 5 will be pad 13. 14. 15 and 16. So I now need to match the pads. So pad 4 hasn't been done. That kind of works. It doesn't have to be exact, it still might work, but I don't want too much clashing because it's going to get too busy. So this pad is... I might even choose to not have some of these pads looping. Let's loop it up to the halfway point. So you can hear it gets a bit messy. Okay, that's a bit better. Pad 5 is going to trigger pad 13. Okay, that's not too bad. I'm going to leave that as is. Pad 14 needs to start from the snare. That's fine. Pad 7. Hang on, I triggered pad 2, didn't I? That works okay. That might need to be adjusted. Let's try it from the actual shaker here. Yeah, because this starts on a ride, this pad 7. That's fine. And the last one, pad 8, is what? Starts from the shaky bit, so we need to adjust that to maybe here. Maybe a bit further along from halfway. That might work a bit better. Okay, I'm going to go with that. So we'll hear this come in at bar 129. Yep, that works. Good. I'm going to keep it. So you might notice that the think break, it does work, but it's a little bit too quiet, and you might have seen me just a little bit earlier go to the sample editor and add some gain to these. Now these are already getting squared off, so that tells me they're going beyond the normalized level. I don't want to give them too much extra gain, but what I think I'm going to do is go to the pad mixer and choose all the think breaks, go to the routing page and switch their routing to a submix. and that will allow me to add a compressor to that submix to just give them that gain. I just need to check in the track mixer. I think I was using one of the submixes. I'm using submix 1, so I'm going to put a compressor on submix 2. Select, edit it. Let's take off the threshold so it's not actually going to be doing any compressing, and that means I need to reduce the overall output where we're going to get the gain for the think break, and I'm going to bring that down to maybe 6 dB. That might be a little bit too less or a little bit too much. Let's go back to the pad mix and change our routing from program to submix 2 for the think break. So hopefully this gives you some ideas of how you can utilize the submixes if you've not used them before. It just allows us to split off a particular pad or a set of pads from the program, so it's not being output through the program, it's actually being sent to a submix now for additional processing. So let's see how that sounds. Now I want to go back to the track mixer and to the compressor that's on submix 2, so we can play the track back and adjust the gain. So as you could hear, it was far too loud, so I think the compressor just on its own at 0 would be the original level. Let's just test that. So I think it actually works just with a 0 dB, and the compressor is giving it some amount of gain already without any additional parameters being boosted, obviously the output itself. Another thing that I want to do just before I finish the video, maybe take a bit of the low end because the kick drum of the think break is a bit too dominant in my opinion. So easily done. Let's go up to zones, choose multiple, choose the think break, close, and we can affect the filter now for all of those last 8 pads with a think break. So I'm going to choose a high pass 4. Just bring the cutoff down to maybe 32. That should be fine, and that just rolls off a bit of the bottom end. So, hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. I know things get a little bit long-winded and repetitive in places, but I keep on saying it. It is vastly different from doing this on my own in the studio, but most of these processes are kind of cut-down versions of what I'd be doing on my own. If you were sat here with me in the studio on my own, it would be a lot more laborious to sit here and listen to what I'm doing, but I'm trying to sort of cut corners a little bit for the sake of editing and for the sake of not wanting to bore anyone. Please do stay tuned for the final installment of how to make a drum and bass track from scratch using your MPC. And please contact me at tubedigga@gmail.com for private lessons. And if you want to donate to the channel to help me out, there's a PayPal link in the description. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting me on social media. Please like, share and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I will see you on the next one. This is Tubedigga, and I'm out.